Welcome to Hidden Finance, the channel where economics and finance reveal their most hidden secrets. Today, we'll uncover a new mystery that has shaped global markets and influenced the economy. In 1783, the United Kingdom recognized the Declaration of Independence of the 13 North American colonies. At that time, the economy of these colonies was primarily based on agriculture. There were few factories, and society was disorganized. A far cry from the image of a future world superpower. Yet from these humble beginnings, the former colonies would transform into the most powerful nation in the world. Today, we explore how the United States became a global superpower, following a path of expansion, innovation, and political strategy that shaped history. The history of the United States as an independent nation began in 1776. When 13 British colonies signed the Declaration of Independence, marking the start of a revolution against British rule. The War for Independence lasted until 1783 and ended not with a British military defeat, but with a strategic decision. The British, fearing further unrest and boycotts that could harm their economy, chose to withdraw rather than risk new revolts. Initially, American independence seemed to have little impact on the United Kingdom. The former colonies remained economically dependent on London, exporting mainly raw materials and importing manufactured goods. The newly established United States adopted an isolationist policy to avoid conflicts with European powers. They traded but stayed out of the political and military disputes of the old continent. This isolation allowed them to focus on internal development, particularly westward expansion, known as the Wild West period. This territorial expansion was crucial for acquiring new natural resources and strengthening the economy. Westward expansion was not without controversy, marking a period of conflicts with native populations and an expansion often characterized by substantial anarchy in frontier territories. Despite this, the United States greatly benefited economically from the discovery of natural resources, particularly coal, which fueled the first wave of American industrialization. Coal, abundant especially in the Appalachian region, provided low-cost energy to factories, giving the United States a significant competitive advantage over European nations. With an unlimited supply of cheap energy, the United States underwent rapid industrialization during the 19th century, attracting investors and workers worldwide. While many countries rich in raw materials chose to export them for immediate gains, the United States used its resources to develop a robust and self-sufficient domestic economy, fostering a strong and competitive manufacturing industry. The focus on industrialization led to internal tensions between the northern states, which supported an industry-based economy, and the southern states, which preferred an economy based on agriculture and the export of raw materials. These economic tensions, along with the issue of slavery, culminated in the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. The victory of the northern states not only preserved the nation's territorial integrity, but also solidified the industrial direction and the abolition of slavery, paving the way for accelerated economic expansion. By the end of the 19th century, the United States surpassed the United Kingdom as the world's leading industrial producer. The abundance of natural resources, combined with a growing influx of capital and immigrant labor, allowed the United States to establish itself as one of the world's major economic powers. At the beginning of the 20th century, the United States was a rapidly growing country with a dynamic economy and sophisticated financial markets. During this period, the so-called American dream began to take shape, fueled by economic expansion and an abundance of opportunities. However, U.S. involvement in World War I marked a significant turning point. Until then, the United States had maintained an isolationist policy, avoiding European conflicts. But in 1917, under President Woodrow Wilson, the United States entered the war on the side of the Allies, largely to protect its economic investments in Europe. After the war, the United States sought to maintain global peace through the creation of the League of Nations, a precursor to the UN. However, American public opinion remained strongly isolationist, leading the United States to withdraw from the League of Nations and refocus on domestic economic development during the 1920s, known as the Roaring Twenties. The period of prosperity in the 1920s ended abruptly with the stock market crash of 1929, which triggered the Great Depression. This economic crisis devastated the American and global economies, causing a 28% drop in U.S. GDP between 1929 and 1932. To address the crisis, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt implemented the New Deal, a series of economic and social reforms designed to stabilize the economy, create jobs, and introduce new regulations for the financial sector. These measures succeeded in reviving the American economy and restoring investor confidence, but a full economic recovery only came with the outbreak of World War II. With the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan in 1941, the United States entered World War II, joining the Allied forces. The conflict provided a massive boost to American industry, which became the arsenal of democracies, producing enormous quantities of weapons, vehicles, and other war materials. At the end of the war, the United States emerged as the world's leading industrial power, with a solid economic base and rapidly growing global influence. Immediately after the war, the United States played a key role in the reconstruction of Europe through the Marshall Plan, which provided billions of dollars in aid to rebuild the war-torn economies. However, this aid was not without conditions. Recipient countries had to commit to free market principles and keep communists out of governments. With the end of World War II, the world found itself divided between two ideologically opposed superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States permanently abandoned its isolationist policy and assumed the role of leader of the free world. By founding NATO in 1949, the United States sought to contain Soviet expansion and protect Western European countries from a possible invasion. This military alliance marked the beginning of the Cold War, a period of intense ideological, political, and economic rivalry between the two superpowers. The United States consolidated its economic and political power through the implementation of international economic agreements such as the Bretton Woods system, which established the dollar as the global reserve currency. Even after the collapse of the Bretton Woods system in 1971, the dollar remained the primary reserve currency, further strengthening U.S. economic influence worldwide. In the 1980s, under President Ronald Reagan, the United States adopted a more aggressive foreign policy aimed at putting pressure on the Soviet Union. Through increased military spending and other economic strategies, such as the agreement with OPEC countries to lower oil prices, the United States helped collapse the Soviet economy. This, along with a series of democratic revolutions in the Eastern European satellite states, led to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. With the end of the Cold War, the United States remained the world's only superpower, ushering in a period of unipolar dominance. The United States continued to exert significant economic, political, and military influence worldwide, promoting free market principles, democracy, and human rights as universal values. From its humble beginnings as a group of agricultural colonies, the United States leveraged its vast range of natural resources, strategic geographic position, capacity for innovation, and foreign policy to emerge as a global superpower. The combination of territorial expansion, industrialization, economic development, military strategy, and international diplomacy allowed the United States to dominate the global landscape for much of the 20th century. Today, despite emerging challenges from other global powers, the United States continues to play a central role in world affairs. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next mysteries of the economic world. But what's your opinion? Share it in the comments.